Welcome to this season finale of the Virtual Coffee Podcast. This is season 8, episode 9. I'm Bekah, and this is a Virtual Coffee Podcast, which I just told you. We're an intimate community of people at all stages of the tech journey, and we're here on this podcast sharing their stories and what they've learned. Here with me today is my co-host, Dan. I've only been saying this for 8 seasons, and I still can't get it right. I'm doing excellent.
Oh man, what up, Beck? How's it going? You're doing great. You're doing sarcastically excellent.
I am very tired, so I am doing the most excellent job that I possibly can be doing right now.
Well, that's all we can ask from you. Real quick before we get started, we are very grateful to be sponsored by Level Up Financial Planning, who understands the importance of finding balance between having an awesome life today and being confident and excited about your future possibilities. If you want to take your financial confidence to the next level, check out levelupfinancialplanning.com. You can find that link later on our show notes and all that stuff too. So thank you again to Level Up Financial Planning. We really appreciate it. So yeah, we are here. We're doing our little season finale wrap up, just me and Bekah. And well, I think we should probably start our podcast episode like we start. No, this is part you do.
You're
All right.
stealing it. Go ahead, go for it.
I'm gonna
Just steal it.
I'm throwing it to you. No, you do it better than I do. I don't really remember all the words. So
We
this is where
start
I throw
every
it back to you.
episode of the Virtual Coffee Podcast like we start every virtual coffee. We say our name, where we're from, what we do, and a random check-in question. We answer that. We don't say it. We just answer it.
Sure.
I'm Bekah. I am developer experience lead at OpenSauce from a small town in Ohio. And I didn't tell you what the random check-in question is. Our random check-in question is, if you could be the character in any action movie, which character would you be? Got it?
Okay.
I would be Jason Bourne. I'm a big Jason Bourne fan. So I'm going to go with that.
Jason Bourne is pretty dope, although he doesn't remember a lot of stuff, and seems like he
I'm
lives
like
a
a
hard
really
life.
big fan of not remembering. Like the other day, I was just like kind of letting my mind drift. And I was like, what if I really was a trained secret agent? And like one time somebody like did something and they were after my kids. And then I just like randomly took them down. And I'd be like, oh, my whole life has been a lie. And then I came up with a whole side story. And I was like, I think I'm going to write another screenplay because this seems interesting.
I like it. Have you read the book as well, or have
I
you just seen the
no,
movie? The book
no.
is really good. The ones after it are not as good, but the first one's really good.
Mm.
But I always like it was written. I don't know when it was. It was a while ago, and he, instead of having, I forget what it is in the movie. Does he have like some code or something tattooed, or I don't know, whatever it was. In the movie, it was like, or I mean, in the book, it was like there's like microfilm and stuff, and I was like, I miss when microfilm was like a thing in our lives. So yeah, Jason Bourne is dope. Anyway, I am Dan. I am a web developer person, and I do computer stuff. I live in Cleveland, and any character in an action movie. I guess this is tough. There's a lot of different action movies, and I'm really having trouble like thinking of action movies right now, except for Jason Bourne movies.
You can't be Jason Bourne. That's the rule.
Right,
Nobody can
right.
have the same answers.
And I assume action movies like rules out like superhero movies are not action movies, right?
Right. No, that doesn't
So
count.
I'm going to choose the
Although Hawkeye is like borderline, right? Because I feel like Hawkeye doesn't really have any superpowers, and neither
right,
does Natasha. They're just like
right.
highly trained. So they could fall under action hero.
Now you're just. What about Batman? He doesn't have any superpowers.
I don't
See,
know about
no, I think we should just.
Batman.
I'm fine with just ruling out superheroes. If you're gonna like let some in, then we're gonna have we're gonna be going down a slippery slope. I'm gonna go with um, I'm gonna go with what's his name from that one movie? Um, John
Ethan
McClane.
Hunt.
John McClane, Die
Oh,
Hard. Yeah, it's just
that's
a
solid.
classic. You know, get to save
It's my
everybody.
mom's favorite movie.
Get to save Christmas. You know, it's good stuff. Um, yeah, it's one of my favorite movies for sure, and also one of the only ones I can think of. I was considering choosing the Terminator from Terminator 2, the like one who's been programmed to be a good guy, you know, because that would be cool. He's like rides a motorcycle and shoots a shotgun with one hand, which is pretty dope. But I don't know. I don't want to be a computer, so you know,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Sigourney Weaver is pretty sweet from the Alien movies.
yeah, she's awesome. And
Oh, so is
what the lady that plays the lady that plays Sarah Connor in the Terminator movies
yeah.
is incredibly awesome too. Um, I don't remember her name. I'm sorry for forgetting her name.
I'm really bad at names, just
I
like
know.
in
I could have.
general. Like people
Uh,
come up at conferences and they like know
yeah.
my name, and I'm like, "Hey, you."
I mean, I've watched 10 billion action movies, and I can only think of literally 3 action movies right now. So yeah, remembering things not my forte as well.
Mm, yeah.
Um, I almost couldn't come up with John McClane. I could only come up with Bruce Willis. So
Well, we would have helped you out. If
anyway,
you have an answer to what action hero you would be, you can put that in the chat too. We would love to know what great action heroes are lurking at Virtual Coffee
yeah,
in the
does it have to
podcast
be
chat.
a hero or just a character?
It can be a character, right? If you wanna be a villain, that's great, then we'll know to, like, avoid you a little bit more when we have virtual coffee or if we see you in person, but, you can be the sidekick. There's nothing wrong with being a sidekick. Lots of good sidekicks out there too. Although action movies don't have as many sidekicks as, like, superhero movies,
Yeah, I don't know.
right?
I feel like
Who are some action sidekicks?
I don't know. What about the annoying kid from Terminator 2? He's probably kind of a sidekick.
Is he a sidekick?
I How do you define sidekick? I mean,
I guess Justin Long is kind of a sidekick in the, Die Hard with a Die Hard
that one's
with a Vengeance?
no, with a Vengeance is you know, the one
Die
with
Hard with a computer?
Samuel L. Jackson. Live
Mm,
long and die hard. That's what it is, right? Isn't it? Die Hard
I don't know.
movies. Live free or die hard, not live long or die hard.
Mm, mm.
I always hear AI. How's it going? Um,
Um,
yeah.
so
Anyway,
excellent. We've
should
done a
we
really good job on this intro as usual. Um,
we usually have
so
a guest to, you know, throw in some, you know, non us stuff, and it's not happening
Indiana
today. So,
Jones for sure. Indiana Jones is
ooh,
amazing. Marion from Indiana Jones is like one of my all-time favorite heroines. Like, I just wanted to be her when I was a kid. I not really sure why. She just seemed like pretty awesome and she like drank all the guys under the table. And I was like, all
yeah.
right, that's hero material. um yeah, Indiana Jones would be a really good costume. Oh, we've got to make sure that we do virtual coffee Halloween this year. We dropped the ball a little bit last year. I, like,
Yeah.
literally forgot it was Halloween, and I think Dominic was like, "Are we doing Halloween this year?" And I was like, "Yeah," and then I totally forgot. Um, but anyway, so we're talking about our career journeys today, unless anybody else has, topics they wanna hear us talk about or questions or hot takes, whatever you would like to talk
What
about,
was
we're
that?
here for it. But,
Sorry.
how dare you?
I know.
I would
I don't
like
know.
to point out that when Dan introduces himself on the podcast, he says something very different every single time. And so who knows what his career journey has been. So he has to start
Oh, I have to start. Okay, my career
because you don't know
journey.
what you do for a living.
It's It's true. I don't say a different thing every time on purpose. It's just that I don't really have a good, answer to that question and trying to explain all the
But
things.
why? Why
I
do you not
I,
have a
I
good answer to
used
that question?
well, I just do too many things. I've started like leaning into full stack as a whatever term, but I really don't like it. So I try to come up with other things. But I used to do strictly front. Anyway, wait, do we
Okay,
want to talk
okay.
about why or should I just start at the beginning?
Yeah, I'm just gonna ask you questions. So I'm gonna interview you for this portion. Okay, so
Oh,
first
okay.
of all, what is a full stack developer?
Um, my understanding of a full stack developer is somebody who writes both front end and back end code, right? Um, but that can I don't know, that can encompass a lot of different things, right? And it's sort of a meaningless term, I think, to me. Like I don't know. I don't think there's much difference between saying you're a full stack developer or a web developer, but web developer sounds less cool these days, I think. You don't like
Why do
see
you
people
think where do
saying.
you think that transition happened?
Um, it happened because I think in the past there used to be a pretty sharp division between front end developers and back end developers, and with the modern like tooling that's been coming out over the last like 5 or 10 years, a lot more people doing back end work, but writing JavaScript, right? Like a lot of front end developers found themselves writing back end code, and they weren't just front end developers anymore, right? And needed a term. They weren't just back end developers either. And so here's where we landed, I guess.
Do you think that so I'm more familiar with the front end part of things just because that's what I've done more often. And so I see it. Like I've seen a lot of front end developers writing back end or back end y kind of code. Do you think that the same is true for back end developers? Are they writing more front end code now?
Yeah, I'm not sure. And I think that backend developers always did write front end code if they didn't have like a dedicated front end person, but well, lots of times not that good because that wasn't their um, concentration. And
Yeah.
I think probably that happens with this situation as well, where the backend code is not that good if it's not your primary focus, and there's just there's a lot to know, and if you're trying to know everything, um, it doesn't always you're never going to know everything, and so I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense,
Yeah, I think
but
it's super hard. So, I'm ignoring your career journey right now just to dive into this a little bit because I also see there's a lot of folks who are getting their like looking for their first job or their early career and they're being advertised full stack positions. And I have thoughts about that. But I don't know, what do you think? It seems like full stack more often comes like when you have a solid and in-depth understanding of one and then you realize like how the front end interacts with the back end a lot more and so you're better able to touch that code and understand the decisions that you're making. So it seems like people who are advertising for a junior full stack role, maybe they're just trying to get more out of somebody and pay them less, but maybe that's kind of a hot take.
yeah, I don't know. I think, I mean, one of the things now is right, like if you write a Next.js app, if you just write or follow a tutorial, like the tutorial on the Next.js site, right, or on the React site, you're going to end up writing full stack code because a lot of the code that you're writing React, components, but they are not being rendered on the client. They're being rendered like they're not being rendered in the
Mm.
browser. They're being rendered on the server. And so you are writing a full stack app, even just the like hello world, whatever the tutorial is. And so calling it front end, even if the work you're doing is mostly like interaction work, right, is still not correct anymore, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so that line has become super blurry, and that's like why I think we're in this. I mean, it's not like a huge problem. It's just like a lack of good terminology. Um, I would not expect a junior full stack developer to be, writing database queries, and maybe they would, like those kinds of things just depend on the company and like how big the company is. The smaller the company, I feel like the more hats you're going to have to wear and things like that, which is just I don't know. That's always been the case. Um, and so, yeah, I don't know if that makes sense at all, but
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense, I think, and I think that shows also, like, how much it has evolved over even just, like, the last couple of years, right? Like,
mhm.
um, when I graduated boot camp 5 years ago, like, we weren't even learning React hooks, like, they were out, but that was not part
Mhm.
of the curriculum, and so I, like, remember you saying, like, "Oh, we're gonna use hooks," and I was like, "Sweet."
Yeah.
Um Okay, okay, so I'm done. I'm done questioning the definition of full stack developer, and we'll go back to what you are doing and how you got there.
Well, should I start with how I got there? Or should I start with what I'm doing?
What I don't know, do you prefer flashbacks in movies or do you think that's like
Mm.
a lazy literary device? It's up to
I mean,
you.
only if they're done well, and I feel like if they're done well, I need to plan it out ahead of time. So I think sequential is probably the best way to go about things, I suppose. I can't remember if we've done this before though, so I don't know how much of this our listeners have already heard from us.
I think it's been a while,
Yeah.
so we can go for it.
Okay. Well, I started. I mean, we always had computers growing up, and I just always liked messing with them. I never really wrote any code or anything. I wasn't like one of those kids who, I don't know, like hacked into them, whatever. I was just kind of like use them as a consumer, but they're always fun. And I'd say in high school sometime, I started getting into a little bit of web development, mostly to I was in a band, and so I made a Flash site for our band. It played music. It had all sorts of buttons and things that were probably pretty annoying for everybody, but it was fun to do. And I just kind of kept doing that as a hobby, a little bit here and there. And I went to college. Well, when I started college, I was a computer science major. I did that for a while, and I switched my major my junior year to English, which I enjoyed better. Computer science it was fun for a while, and then I did a semester where it was assembly language and theoretical stuff and discrete math, and I just was not interested in it anymore. And I have ADHD, and I've things that I'm not interested in. I have historically just not done very well at all because if I'm not interested in it, I can't really get my brain to push through anything, especially things that are hard or take lots of work, like discrete math. and and English was engaging, and a lot of my friends were English majors, and so switching my junior year messed up all of my prerequisites and all that stuff, because the computer science major, I don't know, took care of a bunch of like science things and other things like that, right? That English didn't. And so I was way behind. I had to go back I had finished my English major after 4 years. I had to go back because I needed just like four um, boring prereq classes and just sort of didn't go to any of them and then dropped out my 5th year of college, which was really great plan. uh, and by plan, I mean not a plan at all. And yeah, I went home and I started working for doing website stuff for a local newspaper as sort of a friend of a friend was starting a newspaper, kind of a community run grassroots thing. And so I did their whole website, like learned it was all in PHP, right? Learned PHP and CSS and HTML and all that stuff, and got paid $10 an hour. So that was, but I was working a lot.
Taking the big
And
bucks.
yeah, right. But like he was fine with me like learning on the job and all that stuff as well. And so that was kind of a cool experience. And of course, I was still just like, living by myself. Well, I had a roommate. I mean, we rented a house and stuff, but like, I had very few living expenses and things like that. And then my wife Emily, she graduated college, and then got accepted into the PhD program at Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana. And so we moved out there. We weren't married yet, but we moved out there. And right around then, I started working for Sprockets, which is a local. There's two owners. One lives in Cleveland, or one lives here in Lakewood, and one lives in Philadelphia. But they were sort of an organization of freelancers and needed some front end help. And so that was 2007, I think. And yeah, so I started working for Sprockets and just kept working for Sprockets. Had lots of other clients here, here and there. And then what happened? We got married. I moved back. We moved back to Cleveland, and yeah, I don't know, just kept working. At some point, I decided I would like to try having a subcontractor, and saw a tweet from this lady named Bekah, and I reached out to her. And that worked out for a while, and then she got like really pushy and really, annoying, and so I fired her, obviously, and
That's
here we
not
are.
true. Other than the fired part, that is not true.
No, man, no. That it was great working with Bekah. I don't know if you look back on it fondly. I remember giving you nightmares about Cyprus,
I
which
did. I
was,
used to have
yeah.
Cypress nightmares
I
all the
was
time. It was
I
just
was
like
I was telling
tests
Kirk
were
about that.
failing for no reason. It was wild. My brain.
Yeah.
One time, I think one time I had a nightmare. I can't exactly remember it, but somebody else that we were working with at Sprockets was also in the dream. There were 3 Sprockets employees beside me in the dream, and we were like at a frozen lake. And then I can't remember who started killing who in the lake, but it was, I
Whoa.
think,
I don't think I heard about
over
this one.
some, can't remember what the argument was, but it was really intense. There was like major fighting in the ice cold lake going on.
All
If
right.
you're just joining us now, this is totally a dream. It did not happen, but all of my anxieties manifested in my dream and somehow came out to 3 other Sprockets employees beating each other up in an ice cold lake. So if you are an early
Okay.
career developer and you're also having nightmares like that, you are not alone.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so we were working together, and then the pandemic happened. My work held on for a little bit, but at some point, all of my clients just shut down. All of Sprocket's clients shut down, and so I didn't have any work, and so therefore, I didn't have any work for Bekah, and so that's when. So I was like, I just don't have any work for you. I'm sorry. And that's how she says that I fired her, which clearly I did not. And then Bekah started wanting to hang out with people on Zoom and calling it virtual coffee. And so I started tagging along with that as well. And yeah, at some point, Sprocket started back up. My work started back up. Virtual coffee obviously has kept going as well. And
we started working together again too for a while.
oh yeah, that's right. And then what happened?
Then I think that work was still pretty light,
Okay.
for a while, and I just needed more work at that point, and
Mhm.
I took on a contract that was that I'm not going to talk about. Learned a lot. I learned a lot from that experience. And then around that point, it came down to an insurance thing, right? Like because of medical circumstances and bills and stuff like that, I wanted to make sure that my family had medical insurance, and somebody reached out to me for a full-time role, and then I took it. So it was kind of like that. That was the path to.
So you quit.
I do not remember having any issues assigned to me when I stopped working for you. So we can trace that.
Oh man, no, we probably don't need to do that. Yeah, and so I've done the subcontract thing a few other times. I'm actually currently working with Kirk, who is another virtual coffee maintainer, and that
Kirk.
is
Kirk is
going
the best.
amazing.
Sorry.
Kirk is the best. He's really great.
There are many great members of people at Virtual Coffee, but Kirk
Yeah.
is the number one member. And this is a side note, but for everybody who's familiar with Kirk Day, yesterday I was at a cheering competition for like, I don't know, 6 or 8 hours. And that Missy Elliott song was played so many times. So maybe this year somebody needs to write a blog post about Kirk Day, so then anytime we mention it, we can just drop the blog post, right?
Yeah, that is amazing. Yeah, I think about that all the time. So yeah, Kirk is probably our top member. He's the only one that has a Kirk Day holiday, so deservedly so.
The only
Um,
official virtual coffee holiday is Kirk Day.
yes, and maybe Hacktoberfest, maybe like a month-long
Oh,
holiday.
are we making that a holiday?
I don't know. It's more of a month of. I guess it's probably not a holiday because it's not just one day.
Yeah, it's a whole
It's
month. It's a season. We have like
31 days
Hacktoberfest
of.
season, right? Like we have Preptember, Hacktoberfest, and then we have the blogging challenge right after. And then in December, I'm so tired.
Yeah, it's a lot. We have stacked them all up together, but it's also awesome. So you know, we had I forget who. I think oh, it was Chris. Chris Jarvis posted about Preptember in one of our Slacks, and I was like, oh God, it's coming.
Yeah, I was going to tell you, by September 1st, we should probably ship our Hacktoberfest site. So
Yo,
now I'm telling
sweet.
you.
Awesome.
You got
Well,
2 weeks.
yeah. The yeah, we need to prep a prep month for Preptember. Prep
We say this every
prep
August. So like we do this big season
breakfast.
for Hacktoberfest. And in August, you feel like you're fine. And then suddenly you realize like you should have started like end of July. Right? Every
Yeah,
year. We've been doing this since April of 2020.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
So
It's a lot, but I'm excited about it also.
it's so fun. I'm very, very excited this year because of where I am in my career. So I'm going to be like double duty on Hacktoberfest. It is going to be way more intense than it has ever been in a very good way, but also I'm sure in a very exhausting way. But I'm about to, and I'm going to crush the blogging challenge. I'm going to crush it this year.
Nice.
So
Did have you won it? Not that there's winners or losers, but I feel like you have not won it yet, or did you win the first year? I feel like this is
I
something you would know.
might have run. I might have won the first year, but that's only because, hey, Kayla, I could be wrong. So apologies if somebody else won it. We might not have been tracking, but also that year I was working very little during that month. So I might have just been blasting them out of the water. But now I'm like, for work, I write a lot of blog posts and content. And so it is I'm preparing myself to
Nice. Yeah,
really.
I'm hoping to. I mean, I won't be able to come up near you, near some of the
No,
high
you won't.
content number word count people, but I am hoping to contribute a meaningful amount this year. Um, I've been slacking a lot with blogging for the last 20 years, so
Oh, and
I'm,
you have a nice new
uh,
site.
I know I have this new site, and I need to actually make it worth it. It was 10 years, so I found the blog post is 10 years since like the last time I redid the site, and that blog post was like 6 posts down from the current one. So, could be doing a little more on that note. So I'm looking forward to it. Um, yeah, I'm looking forward to all the
My blog post
Hacktoberfest
this
stuff.
week made top 7 for Dev
I
2.
saw that. I saw that.
Very excited about that.
So good job.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I still have like I'm still cross posting on Dev2, for my personal blog stuff, but it's I can never figure out how much I want to try to push that or not, Um, anyway, um, so you were talking about your current job and like how it's going to cross over with our Hacktoberfest stuff. So your title is developer experience lead. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
at Open Sauce. Okay, so why don't you explain a little more about like what that means? Maybe start with what is Open Sauce? What is Open Sauce in
Awesome.
general?
That is a
And
good
then,
question.
you know, what do you do there?
So at Open Sauce, we are working to empower open source organizations and contributors to work in the open. And so that means there's kind of like a twofold way of doing this. So we're supporting maintainers and organizations to make sure that their open source repositories are healthy and thriving and that they continue to be healthy and thriving. And then for contributors, which is kind of like my side of things as developer experience lead, working to onboard them, highlight the work that they're doing, and provide recognition. And so, like, one of the things that we're doing is recognizing that you can contribute. You don't have to have a green square to be a contributor to an open source project, right? Like there's all this focus on green squares on GitHub, but that's not the only way to do it. You know, some of the most impactful things you can do, you can create an issue, you can answer questions in the community, you can direct people to good and positive repositories to start at. So I'm kind of like doing my best right now. We're running the 100 Days of OSS challenge. And you can join at any time. So if you didn't start with us, we started on July 23rd because that's 100 days to Hacktoberfest. So I feel like maybe I got a little bit of jump on Hacktoberfest because started then. But we're just like providing extra resources and support during that time. And so as developer experience lead, that's part of it. So it's like education, workshops, tooling for developers to make it easier to use our product, which is providing recognition and health and information about open source projects, and things like that. So I was just like brainstorming. I have like 6 ideas for how to use our API to create a project. And it's all about like finding what works for you in your career and what your goals are. So hopefully those will come into fruition soon. But I feel like it's really in my wheelhouse because my background is in teaching and it's developer experience. Like I've had a lot of different roles over the last 4 years. Working with you and doing front end stuff. I did some Web3 stuff. I've done community stuff, and now I'm in developer experience. And so far, all of those experiences have been, no, I'm not just going to comment on them. They've not all been good, but some of them have. I feel like developer experience is like a good utilization of all of the things that I've done throughout my life, right? So like there's some coding involved, there is community involved, there is writing and education. And so like I don't know, I feel like it's a culmination of all of the things that I've done over my whole life. And so like yeah, I've been in tech for 4 years, but I'm not bringing 4 years of experience to this job. I'm bringing, like, I taught for 10 years before that, and I ran community events before that. So it's I don't know. I like being able to do it. Plus, like the ADHD thing, um, it keeps me energized at all times because if this thing is boring to me right now, I'm gonna move on to the next thing, right? So far, I've
Totally.
been able to complete most of my projects. So
That's good news. Much better than my usual start a project that I'm excited about and then, wander away when it gets hard. Uh, so at your position, as a lead, I suppose, or whatever, you're doing a lot of project inception and planning and things like that, right? I mean, you kind of writing your own ticket for what open source needs.
yeah, and so we're a pretty small startup, and one of the things I think I like about this, like as opposed to my last job, it was just like constantly blockers. Not from my team. My team at my last job was really great. I enjoyed working with all of the people directly on my team, but it's like we would start a project and then somewhere ahead it'd be like, oh no, we're pivoting. And so it was just, I was constantly stopped and I never got to see any progress. And I did discover through that experience that making progress is super important to me. Otherwise, I hate what I'm doing, like,
Totally.
I don't know. I feel like for those of you who know me, I really like weightlifting, and it would be like you're just like constantly at the gym, but nobody ever lets you go for a PR. So like their personal record, not a pull request or a press release, or I don't know if there's any other PR abbreviations. But it's just I don't know, it just becomes overwhelmingly frustrating at some point. So yeah, completing projects. So the point is, like, I get to kind of define what that looks like. I've been there since middle of April. And at this point, I've done a ton of experimentation, and Brian Douglas, B. Dougie, has let me, he's basically like, just go do what you want to do. And then think about like what the goals are for the organization, and then come back to see what works and what can move things forward. And so now I'm at the point, I had a tweet, I think it was today, like, for people who have strategy as part of their job or their side hustle, like, how do you take the time to strategize? Because I feel like I've done all of these things. Now I have to like scale back on the number of things I'm doing and really think deliberately about strategy. I have pages and pages of notes. And like, Dan, like I will do write down lots of things and just like suddenly brain dump, right? All of those things. And I actually owe Dan a brain dump of all of my notes that I've taken over the last couple of weeks on virtual coffee things. But now I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, as developer experience lead, I have to kind of like define what that looks like going forward and think deliberately about the strategy and metrics and that kind of thing. And so I'm trying to build that into the process so I can be more effective, or I guess it's maybe not even, I probably can be more effective, but more efficient with the way that I use my time, to be able to know, like, okay, this thing works. I'm going to iterate on this, or this is, sometimes things are really they're really effective, but they're really time consuming. And then like, that's hard for me to kind of figure out, okay, is it worth it to spend all this time on this one thing? Or is there a different way that I could present this material that doesn't require so much of my time? So those are like a lot of the things that I'm thinking through now, and things that I have less experience doing that I'm trying to like grow in that path.
Yeah, that's awesome. The So you talked about things that are taking up lots of time, or maybe don't feel like time effective. Time, what is it? Time, whatever. Don't feel good with time stuff. But like, uh, what are some specific things that you've been doing with, aside from like the behind the scenes stuff? You talked about the 100 days of open source. Is that mostly on Twitter? Like, just I don't know. Talk about some of the specific
Yes.
like things that you're doing with developers. Not as opposed to behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, so as part of 100 days of open source, because like onboarding new folks into open source, there's a wide variety. And like, we know this through Hacktoberfest, and I've talked about a number of times, like, we have members who request mentorship for Hacktoberfest, and they've been in the industry for many years. They've just never contributed before. And so you have to just like kind of figure out, okay, like, what is the best match here? What are the goals of each of the people? And how do I match them to the resources that they need? And so trying to plan for, okay, what kind of content supports these people? And a lot of the time, like, the blog posts that I'm writing are in response to what I see about open source. So like, I'm doing a lot of listening to what people are saying about open source, and then those blog posts are addressing questions that I see. And that's kind of an investment in the future too, because when somebody says like, well, what is a triage team? Then I'm like, I got this blog post, go ahead and read it, and then if you have questions, follow up. And that's also, we're doing weekly Twitter spaces during 100 days of OSS. And that's for a couple of reasons. Like, one, it's great to engage with the community, and I think that that's really important. Two, you get a lot of questions, and then you also start to see like, okay, I've gotten this question every single Twitter space. So this is worth creating a resource around. Or, how do I get started? I now have probably at least 5 blog posts that I can refer people to. And so one of the next blog posts is going to be, if you want to get started in open source, here is a list that you can go through to lead you to your first contribution or something like that. So it's doing that kind of thing. I've been running workshops. Workshops are probably the most time consuming, even though it's already pre-planned, but like we're creating, it's much like what we do at Virtual Coffee, right? Like for Hacktoberfest, we have an issue that every single person works on, and then we guide them through it. At the end of that time, they submit a pull request, and then those pull requests get merged in. And so that's the same thing for the workshop, except I'm running it myself, and the current workshop always creates merge conflicts. And so then Dan and I talked about this recently because I had like 22 pull requests with merge conflicts. But if you asked one person to update, then that would be fine and they could get merged in. But then the next person would need to update their branch. And so it just got to the point where I fixed everybody's merge conflicts for them and merged it all in. When there's fewer, I think I wrote a blog post about how to keep your branch up to date and resolve merge conflicts too, because that's a big question. But also that's super scary. I don't know, like sometimes you see merge conflicts and you're like, I am just going to burn this all down and start over again, right? Sometimes it's easier that way, but also like trying to guide people through like, this might seem scary, but it's going to be part of the process. And this is not going to be the only time in your career that you have to navigate merge conflicts.
Yeah, no, that's true. And obviously we've had a lot of experience with that, a lot of that stuff too. What does open source have, a community itself? Does it have a Discord or anything like that? Like a recurring community situation? I know you're doing a lot of like you said, a lot of the events. I figure those are probably one-off things, but does open source have itself a self-contained community?
Yeah, we do. We have a Discord, and folks can come into the Discord, and there's weekly office hours on Tuesdays. Those are a half an hour after our Twitter spaces. So that way, just to create some continuity. But one of the things that I like best about open source is using the platform actually, because it can help you find your next contribution, but it also helps you to highlight the contributions you've made. And so in January, I gave my first and only keynote, but I really enjoyed the opportunity to talk about storytelling and the importance of storytelling. And so one of the features that we have, my favorite feature, is creating highlights. And so you can put in your PR and create a highlight about that PR. And so today, actually, I did a highlight because Jessica Wilkins, one of our members. Okay, so let me back up a second. Last month at Virtual Coffee, we did the Build in Public Challenge. And so my goal was to contribute to a new open source project that I hadn't contributed to before. And my coding skills are kind of rusty. Like the last year plus, I spent doing mostly community work and not diving into existing code bases. If I was coding, it was a tiny demo project that I could use for a blog post. And so Jessica was like, hey, I'm a maintainer. She's a maintainer at Free Code Camp and some of their repositories. She was like, I've got this issue. Do you want to take it? I was like, sweet. Because the best way I think to find an issue is by knowing someone. And so I worked on this repository. I do not know very much TypeScript. I know I've been to some TypeScript Tuesdays when those were going on, but like, it's a learning curve. I'm still learning. So I was working with TypeScript and I had to ask ChatGPT for some help sometimes. Like, what is happening in Copilot? I like Copilot, explain what is happening here to me to help me kind of learn. And which I will say, like, it was super helpful to use Copilot and ChatGPT to learn and to be able to explain those things. I was primarily working in like, I don't know, 3 to 5 files. So it wasn't like a huge lift for using AI. but enough that it could explain, like, okay, this is what's happening here. I'm like, oh, okay. It would have taken me much longer to try and trace these things and figure out what's happening. So I finally got my PR in a couple of days ago. So I was late. I was late to July, our monthly challenge, but Jessica merged it in today. And she gave me some feedback. I think it was yesterday. So I just want to say too, like, I ran the tests, but I apparently did not run all of the tests. And so I didn't realize like a couple of them were failing. And so she was like, hey, these tests are failing. And here's a couple of other things that you can update. There was some code that I had commented out that I thought I deleted, but I guess I didn't delete, it's all part of the process. And so I was able, the point being like, I created a highlight today using open sauce and was able to tell a little bit of that story of like, this is how this PR came to fruition. And now I have that as like something that I can refer people to if they're interested in knowing about the work that I've done.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, I I don't know. Yeah, I mean, you said a lot of different things that, like the idea of finding a new repository and contributing to it is really cool. And yeah, oh, this is what I was going to say. The tests thing, I did the same thing. I made a pull request to the React code base a couple months ago, and I also missed a test. They had some automated stuff. So once I looked at the pull request, I could see it was failing too. But one of the maintainers, actually pointed it out. I was like, oh yeah, sorry. But it wasn't a big deal. I fixed it up and it was fine. But I don't know. There's a lot of things that go into all of that stuff, and this is why we do all of these things. So we have sort of mentioned Preptober and Hacktoberfest a little bit, a couple times during this talk. We're going to wrap up pretty soon, but why don't we kind of talk about what we have coming up September, October for virtual coffee.
Before we do that, can we just
Yeah.
jump in? There were a couple of comments in the chat, and I'm sorry, I just talked for a really long time and didn't keep up with them. So thanks everyone for being here and listening.
Good call.
Todd is talking about tiling his house in Arizona, and that could be his GitHub grid. One of my teammates, he tweeted, I can't remember what it said exactly, but it was like, if somebody is judging you based on your GitHub grid, and the idea was like, just run this command and it will fill your grid, right? Like, this is why green squares are not a great judge of what you're doing. Yeah, having projects pivoted is the worst. Todd, I'm going to reach out to you because I have a blog post drafted about running accessibility audits on open source projects as a potential for contributing to a project, right? Like, I think that there's a lot of projects out there that maybe haven't prioritized that, and folks could go through a step-by-step process and then create some issues that hopefully can make open source projects and software more accessible. So I don't know a ton about accessibility. I know my awesome friends in accessibility, and I try and follow everything that they're doing. But it's not ever anything that I had to focus on for what I was doing. So I know that I definitely have spots that are weaknesses and need filled in there. So I will let you know how we can do that. All right. And so now I think we covered the comments.
Nice. Yes. Thank you for reminding me about that. So we're going to talk about our next couple of months, but if you have any questions for us, now is the time to drop them in the comments as well, and we'll try to remember to get to them before we're done. But yeah, so we have as we've done this for the last three years, right? We have Hacktoberfest in October, and before that, September is Preptember, right? And so can you talk to us, just explain what Preptember is? And well, see, it's like Preptember is something that leads into Hacktoberfest. So I don't know if it makes more sense to explain Hacktoberfest or Preptember first, but you can decide, and just go ahead.
I think we can go with Preptember first. So Preptember is a time for maintainers of open source projects to kind of do an audit of their project and think about, is this user or contributor friendly? So you can go through and look at your repository. We have a checklist somewhere. And this is one of the things, like, I'm considering creating a CLI tool for it. And I've never done this before, but just to help folks to audit their project, and maybe it automates it a little bit so it looks at the data. So do you have a README? Do you have a code of conduct? Do you have a contributing.md file? What other information is necessary for contributors to know? And I talked in a Twitter space earlier this week, kind of like about creating some level setting. So there are some repositories out there that are only, they're looking, they're looking for more experienced contributors, right? And I think that's fine. You know, we don't all have bandwidth to mentor people, and that's valid, right? If you can't mentor people, then let them know. You know, we would love, although we would love to support contributors at all levels, at this time we can only support people who are at a level where they can handle an issue on their own. Sorry, I just saw Todd's comment. I'd like a CLI tool to run command and clean my house. Yes, please. So Preptember is to prep maintainers, maybe give them some insight into how they can not only prepare their repository for Hacktoberfest, but also they can start to share more about their project to let people know that they're going to be interested in having people contribute to Hacktoberfest. And as one more part of that is the last part of that, I think, is creating issues. So if you want folks who are participating in Hacktoberfest to contribute to your repository, start creating issues now, or reach out to people, members of your community who are invested, and say, like, hey, I don't have the bandwidth right now, but I would love to have some issues created. If there are things that you can think of, can you create these issues? Or can you provide context for these issues that I've created? I know they're not detailed enough. I think that covers it. Is there more that we need to talk about?
Yeah, the only other part I'd add is for Virtual Coffee, we have a contributors section, like part to Preptember as well. Last year, we were concentrating on, for Preptember, sort of finding repositories, possible repositories, and evaluating them against our checklist that we made to see if they are good repositories for potential contributions. And also, like, you can create issues. That's a good way to seed your work for Hacktoberfest, is actually creating issues, useful issues, on repositories that are open to contributions. Along with that, we have some guidance about, reading the contributing guidelines, and how to responsibly interact with the repository, even if you're not writing code, right? Creating issues is something, if they have issues open, they're technically allowed to do it, but most repositories, at least popular ones, will have guidelines about how to approach that situation. And that's one of the best ways to ensure that you have some issues to work on in Hacktoberfest is if you actually create them, there's a good chance that you will get to work on them as well. That doesn't have to be the goal, but it can be. And there's even issues like, okay, so if you find a repository that is useful, but it doesn't have contributing guidelines, you can make an issue that says, hey, create contributing guidelines for this repository,
I would say,
or other, like, documentation improvements, things like that.
yeah, and I just want to jump in because I know that people often say, like, if it doesn't have a code of conduct, then it's not safe for you to contribute to. And I think that that's not necessarily true. When Virtual Coffee was starting, I was lucky enough to have someone that reached out, like, I considered a mentor, and said, like, hey, what should I do now that we have this organization? And one of the first things they said was create a code of conduct. But that wasn't on my radar. I never would have known that. And when I reached out to other contributors to say, like, hey, maybe you should add a code of conduct, they were like, oh, I never would have thought of that, And so sometimes it's almost a little gatekeepy to say, don't contribute to a project that doesn't have a code of conduct, because that maintainer might not know. More established projects, for sure. But I would say the first step would be to check out their issues and their discussions, and see if anyone's raised that issue before. And if not, raise it yourself. It would be really
Hmm.
great if this had a code of conduct to make sure that contributors feel safe contributing. And that's a really great place to start. And you don't have to know how to code to do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can do some of the work for them. There's a lot of good resources out there for creating codes of conduct. Yeah, codes of conduct. I said that right. And so as a maintainer, sometimes, lots of times you put up some package or some little repo and it's just code and that's all you're thinking about, but the a GitHub repository, if it's on GitHub, has by default a bunch of, places where people can interact. And so, yes, I would say a code of conduct is very important, but I would also like not say, oh, don't ever do anything that doesn't have a code of conduct. And I think your suggestion of doing that is a great one. um, Putting up an issue that just says this needs a code of conduct and that's it is not probably very helpful, but if you create an issue that is like add a code of conduct to this repository and then like link to some examples, ours was built on something I forget who we used ours from. I'm just pulling it up right now. But this contributor covenant is a like a code of conduct template, right? And it's good and useful, and they don't have to do that, or nobody has to do that, but like with any issue you're creating, the more work you can do ahead of time, and that doesn't mean like coding the thing or solving it, but the more resources you can put in the issue, the less like work that cognitive work that the maintainer has to do to even just approve the issue, right? To be worked on, the more likely it is to be worked on, and the more you're doing. So that goes back to what you've been saying this whole time of contributing to repositories doesn't necessarily, or contributing to open source doesn't necessarily mean writing code at all. So
Yeah,
yeah,
100%.
yeah. So yeah, that's Prep-Temper. I think we nailed it. And that brings us to
Hacktoberfest. You talk about
Hacktoberfest.
Hacktoberfest.
Okay, so Hacktoberfest was an event, or is still an event that a company called DigitalOcean has been running for a long time. I'm not sure how long. And they started it by doing this thing where the goal is to make 4 open source contributions that are accepted in some way. And then if you complete that, you get some reward. In the past, they've done t-shirts. I think I heard that they stopped doing that this year, probably because there's like some sponsorship money that has not been coming through. It's been a hard time for a lot of tech companies, and so that's fine. It's still a lot of fun, and so we Virtual Coffee, we wanted to like enable our our members to complete that challenge as well. And so our Hacktoberfest event is like sign up for DigitalOcean Hacktoberfest, right? And then we're sort of helping our members like get those ones. And we have the same goals as DigitalOcean in that we are trying to educate people about open source and help anybody get into open source, right? And because we all know that it can be scary to step into that area for the first time, and it can be confusing if you've never done it. And there's a lot of like social constructs that don't have anything to do with code, but that you like that it's helpful to know about, and can seem, I don't know, scary or intimidating if you don't know about them. And so that's it. So we try to have a lot of fun, and like we do a bunch of events during the month. We have also in the past like set up an issue that everybody can work on, to get like their first one in, and so we're still obviously working on all of that stuff, but yeah, so that's kind of Hacktoberfest in a nutshell. Did I miss anything?
No, I just want to say too, as part of the virtual coffee experience, we try and get mentors, contributors, and maintainers on board. And
Yeah.
so part of getting maintainers on board is what we do in Preptember. But a lot of members have created projects just for fun for Hacktoberfest, which has been really
Hmm.
great. I think, I don't know if it was last year or the year before. When did Kirk do the game with Elm?
Yeah, it was a couple years ago at least. Might have been the first year, probably the second year, I guess.
Yeah, it wasn't the first year.
Yeah,
I
Cordo.
remember
Yeah,
I met with Kirk and I wrote Elm for the first and only time
same.
ever. But it was great because we got to have fun and meet up and experiment together and like learn something new. And I think that the focus might be, I think sometimes my first time doing Hacktoberfest, I don't think I completed it because I was so stressed about making 4 contributions and how to find those contributions and making meaningful contributions. And like, I think that what's important is think about what your goals are and how Hacktoberfest can help you to achieve those goals, right? And it might be to experiment in different languages or to support a friend in their learning. And, I for the last 3 years have done my postpartum wellness app. Every year I say I'm not going to do it, and I'm saying I'm not going to do it this year. But we'll see. I've grown so much through maintaining a project for Hacktoberfest in ways that I never could have, I think, as a contributor. It really helps you to appreciate what
Yeah.
happens with being a maintainer and all of the work that goes into that. But also, I had some of like the most meaningful conversations and experiences as part of that. So there's a lot of projects that I'm currently maintaining. I just don't know that I have the bandwidth to do this one this year. But my hope is in a couple of years that I will have plenty of bandwidth for that. So
Yeah.
shout out to
No.
Todd, whose first Hacktoberfest contribution was the VC site.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brady, we've got you. We
Yeah.
can help you figure out where to start.
That's right. Yeah. This is the Brady says, I wouldn't even know where to start. It all seems intimidating to me. And like, you're not alone. Like lots and lots of people, myself included, either still felt that way or felt that way, to, before they started. And it really is like getting that first pull request through is like, you just see it all sort of happen one time. And then I don't know, I feel like a pretty common experience is that like breaks the dam and it becomes a lot easier once you get the first one out. And that's why our first event is all around getting that first pull request in sort of a controlled environment where we're all together and you kind of know us, and it's not like you're talking to somebody who you've
Yeah.
never met and you don't know it, and so yeah, that's the idea. Todd was
I threw a
nervous.
couple of repos in the chat. Sorry. But at Open Sauce, we have a getting started course, like an intro to open source that folks can take and get a contribution. So if you want to prep for Hacktoberfest and experiment a little bit with open source, and the second one, this is kind of like what I was talking about having practice repositories. We have the Pizzaverse repository, and the whole point is like sometimes it takes time to figure out like how to create a pull request or a commit, and that kind of thing. And so the Pizzaverse is just very low key. Put in a pizza recipe or a pizza fun fact. And I need to add a file. Somebody can create an issue for this if they want. There needs to be a file, I think, for like regional types of pizza that we can categorize in some way. Because I was telling people about how amazing Ohio Valley pizza was the other day, um, which is different than most other pizza. So you can Google Ohio Valley pizza, but I'm sure there's lots of really great different types of pizza out there. But the point is you can contribute, and it's okay if it's not right. And you can just keep going.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I mean, like that's sort of, lots of people are nervous, lots of people are intimidated before they start, and like this is our goal in Hacktoberfest is to get people through that, people through that wall. So that's what we're going for.
Okay, so Todd is promising lobster rolls in the chat, and I would like a lobster roll, Todd. So what do I need for that lobster roll?
Oh man, lobster rolls are good.
I haven't had lobster roll in a really long time.
Yeah.
When we used to go to, I have an aunt who lives in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. And when we used to go up there, it's like lobster rolls and clam chowder. That's what we ate. And it was so delicious.
Yep.
Todd is throwing out lobster rolls.
Maybe we could get Todd a lobster roll launcher, you know?
Yes,
Yeah. Next time
that's the
we
way.
next time we all
When
meet
we
up
do
at
the
a
virtual
conference.
coffee conference, we'll
There we
have
go.
a
Lobster roll launcher.
yes, Todd is there for it. All right. Well, we have been going for a while now. So we're going to say thanks to everyone who has been here today and who is listening. Thank you for supporting our 8th season, 8 of the Virtual Coffee Podcast. It's pretty amazing.
It is. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Bekah, for being an awesome co-host and co-maintainer as well. And we will see you all next. I don't know when we're going to start again, but we'll start next month, I'm sure. And we
Are you
will talk
sure?
to you then. I don't know, probably. We should anyway.
We should start next month. So
Yeah, in a couple weeks, we're going to take a couple weeks off, and then we'll be back with season 9, I'm sure, very soon. Because we are
yeah.
always on top
Also,
of everything.
I just want to shout out Magnolia Conference.
Oh, yeah.
So we've got a lot of Magnolia people. I was
I'll be
there
there.
last year. Dan will be there this year. Kayla is organizing that. Todd will be there. Lots of great people there. It was an amazing conference experience last year. So definitely go check out Magnolia Conf. It is happening. Kayla, when is it happening? At the end of October, but I can't remember the dates exactly. It's a Halloween themed conference and it's pretty sweet. Also,
Yes.
I just want to say last year, the food was amazing. Like, never had better conference food. Okay, October 17th through the 18th. Check
That's
out
right.
Magnolia Conf. It is going to be amazing. And I'm sad I cannot be there this year. So,
Yeah.
I think with that, just want to say thank you for being here for Virtual Coffee. And we will see y'all soon.
All right. Thanks, y'all.